And when I'm ready, I'll say what I have to say.
I cannot live a normal life, she said, her voice trembling, because I'm always afraid he might harm me or my children. Imagine a star with piercing eyes, an icon of strength on the silver screen. Yet behind that glamorous aura lie scars invisible to the naked eye. At 55, Uma Thurman has risen, no longer the sword-wielding bride from Kill Bill, but a courageous woman, ready to name the 5 men who left deep wounds in her life. Today, we will embark on a journey that is not just about Hollywood, but about resilience, forgiveness, and the strength to confront the past. This is a story of very real pain, betrayal, and above all, a woman who found light amidst the darkness. Stay with me, for this story will touch your hearts, and I promise to tell it with all sincerity and respect. Before we begin, I want to take you back to Uma Thurman's early days, to better understand this woman and her challenging journey. Born on April 29, 1970, in Boston, Massachusetts, Uma Karuna Thurman grew up in an unconventional family where art and intellect intertwined. Her mother, Nena von Schlebrugge, was a high-fashion model whose ethereal beauty conquered international runways. Her father, Robert Thurman, was a renowned Buddhist scholar, the first Westerner ordained as a Tibetan monk, and a professor at Columbia University. Uma was named after a Hindu goddess, meaning light or bringer of blessings, but her childhood was not always radiant. Standing nearly 6 feet tall by age 14, with angular features, Uma often felt out of place. She once shared that classmates teased her, calling her a beanpole or too weird. Her sharp intelligence and independent nature also made it hard for her to fit in. But these very qualities shaped her path. At 15, Uma left home to pursue a modeling career in New York. And soon, directors took notice. Her breakthrough role came in Dangerous Liaisons in 1988, where she embodied a naive yet captivating young woman. The film thrust her into the spotlight, but it also marked the start of challenges she could not have foreseen. In 1994, Pulp Fiction made Uma a global icon as Mia Wallace, a role both alluring and dangerous. And then, Kill Bill in 2003 and 2004 cemented her as a legend, a powerful woman ready to reclaim her honor with blood and sword. But friends, Hollywood is not just a place of light. It's a labyrinth where sweet compliments hide cruel traps. Behind her dazzling roles, Uma faced pains no camera could capture. Men who didn't use knives but wielded power, manipulation, and betrayal to hurt her. Today, we will talk about those 5 men, the ones who left scars on Uma's heart, and how she overcame them to become the resilient woman she is today. The first on this list is Jack Jordan, a name that sends shivers down our spines, for he was not a friend, colleague, or lover, but a stalker, a nightmare that haunted her from 2004 to 2011. Jordan was a complete stranger, but his obsessive fixation on Uma turned her life into a series of fear-filled days. Imagine being Uma, a mother of 2 young children, Maya and Levon, freshly navigating a painful divorce from Ethan Hawke, only to discover someone is stalking you, sending chilling letters, drawing images of graves, and even showing up at your doorstep in New York. In 2000, Uma reported Jordan to the police after receiving a barrage of threatening letters. These weren't just expressions of unhealthy infatuation. They contained terrifying hints of death and finality. She recounted in a 2008 courtroom that every time the doorbell rang, she flinched, fearing it was Jordan. "I cannot live a normal life," she said, her voice trembling, "because I'm always afraid he might harm me or my children." Jordan was arrested and tried in Manhattan Supreme Court. In May 2008, he was convicted of second-degree harassment and criminal threatening. Uma stood in court, facing the man who had stolen her sense of safety. She described her fear that Jordan could appear at any moment, forcing her to change her routines, hire bodyguards, and live in constant vigilance. The court issued a 10-year restraining order against Jordan and mandated psychological treatment, as he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and personality disorders. But Jordan didn't stop. In 2010, he violated the restraining order, calling and emailing Uma, as if his obsession was an unquenchable fire. He was arrested again, convicted in 2011, and the protective order was extended. Friends, think about this. Uma, who made the world tremble with her sword in Kill Bill, had to live with very real fear in her daily life. She didn't just fight Jordan in court. She fought to hold herself together, to protect her children, and to ensure that fear didn't define her. I want you to pause and reflect. We often admire celebrities, but rarely consider the price they pay, the invasion of privacy, the threats to their safety. Uma showed us that even the strongest can feel afraid, but what matters is how they choose to face that fear. The second is Harvey Weinstein, a name I'm sure you've heard, a monster disguised as a film producer. Weinstein was behind Pulp Fiction, the film that launched Uma to stardom. He called her his irreplaceable muse. And early on, Uma believed he was a supporter of her career. But in 1994, at the Savoy Hotel in London, he revealed his true nature. Uma was invited to discuss a promotional campaign for a Miramax film. She arrived, expecting a professional meeting with a team, but when the door closed, it was just Weinstein, in a bathrobe, with a gaze that chilled her to the bone. "Uma," he said, "you know what we are to each other. You owe me those legendary roles." Uma tried to open the door, but he blocked her. With all her strength, she escaped, but that was only the beginning of the nightmare. Weinstein didn't apologize. Instead, he retaliated. Uma was cut from 3 consecutive Miramax projects. Directors who were once friends grew distant, as if she no longer existed in their world. She felt erased, all because she dared to say no to a powerful man. In the years that followed, Uma spiraled into a psychological crisis. She relied on sedatives daily to cope with fear and insecurity. While working on Kill Bill Volume 2, she nearly quit, unable to bear Weinstein's gaze behind the scenes. It wasn't until 2017, when the Me Too movement erupted, that Uma found the courage to speak out. She said, "I wasn't silent out of fear. I was silent because I knew the truth could destroy my career." Friends, imagine the strength she needed, not just to confront Weinstein, but to face an industry that once celebrated him. Uma called Weinstein the man who made her feel like discarded trash. But by speaking out, she reclaimed her dignity. Uma's action was not just a personal victory. It inspired millions of women worldwide who felt silenced by power and manipulation. She showed us that the truth, however painful, is always worth fighting for. And I believe you, with your own experiences, can understand the power of standing up for yourself, even when the world seems against you. The third is Quentin Tarantino, a name that weighs heavily on my heart, for he was once Uma's confidant but left an indelible scar. Tarantino and Uma were a perfect artistic duo. Together, they created Pulp Fiction, a film that defined a generation, and Kill Bill, where Uma became an icon of fierce vengeance. They weren't just director and actor. They were friends who shared dreams, who understood each other with a single glance. But in April 2002, on the set of Kill Bill, everything changed forever. Tarantino demanded Uma drive an old, unsafe car on a slippery, gravel-strewn road. Uma refused, pleading, "This car isn't safe. The brakes don't work. I'm 6 weeks pregnant. I don't want to die for a scene." But Tarantino didn't listen. He shouted, forcing her into the car, as if her life was merely a piece of the art he pursued. The result was a horrific accident. The car crashed into a tree. Uma lost consciousness. Blood streamed from her knee, and her arm went limp. She woke up in a hospital with a spinal injury and the fear that her pregnancy might not survive. But what hurt more was Tarantino's attitude. As she lay there, he yelled at the crew, "Keep rolling, don't cut." He wanted the scene to be real, even at the cost of her life. When Uma requested the crash footage as evidence, Weinstein refused, citing technical issues, and Tarantino, the man she once called a friend, stayed silent, choosing to protect Weinstein over her. Uma said, "I once thought he was an artist, but no, he was just a pawn, bowing to those who abused power." Friends, think of that betrayal. Uma and Tarantino had shared grand dreams, created masterpieces together. But in the moment, she needed him most. He turned his back. The accident didn't just scar her body. It wounded her soul, a reminder that even the closest allies can hurt us. I want you to pause and reflect on this. In life, we all have people we trust, people we believe will always stand by us. But sometimes, they're the ones who hurt us most. Uma learned this the hard way, but she didn't let it destroy her. She kept working, kept creating, and above all, kept believing in her own worth. The fourth is Ethan Hawke, the husband who promised to hold Uma's hand forever, but shattered her heart with cruel betrayal. Uma and Ethan were Hollywood's golden couple in the 1990s. They met, fell in love, and married in 1998. Uma paused her career to give birth to their daughter, Maya, and son Levon, building a home she believed would last forever. To her, Ethan was a safe haven, someone who would never hurt her. But in 2003, everything crumbled. Uma discovered Ethan was having an affair with Ryan Shaw Hughes, their family's 20-year-old nanny. He didn't just cheat. He paraded Shaw Hughes at events, like a film promotion in Toronto, while Uma stayed home caring for their children and writing scripts. She felt stabbed in the back by the man she loved most. The betrayal peaked at the 2004 Oscars. Ethan appeared on the red carpet with Shaw Hughes, who wore a white dress identical to Uma's wedding gown, in front of hundreds of cameras. He looked into the lens and said, "I always believed I deserved someone who doesn't live in the past." Those words were a dagger to Uma's heart. She didn't retaliate or argue. She withdrew, suffering in silence, but later said, "They don't just take your heart. They tear it apart, put it in a glass case, and let the world mock it." Friends, think of that pain. Uma had stepped away from the spotlight to build a family, but the man she loved destroyed that dream. She once shared that Ethan's betrayal made her lose faith in love, and for years, she struggled to rediscover herself. But like a flower blooming through a storm, Uma rose again, becoming a fierce mother to her children and continuing to shine. The fifth is Arpad Busson, the fiancé who briefly brought Uma hope after her wounds, but plunged her into a heart-wrenching battle. Uma and Busson got engaged in 2008 after her divorce from Ethan Hawke. They had a daughter, Luna, born in 2012, and Uma hoped this would be a fresh start, a chance to build a happy family. But the relationship soon unraveled, leading to a tense custody battle in 2017. Busson, a wealthy financier, demanded primary custody of Luna, accusing Uma of obstructing his access to their daughter. Uma countered that Busson was unreliable, often canceling visits at the last minute, leaving Luna disappointed. The battle in a New York courtroom dragged on, with lawyers, media scrutiny, and financial strain weighing heavily on Uma. She described this period as overwhelming, as she wasn't just fighting to keep Luna, but battling the fear of losing the most precious part of her life. Motherhood is Uma's greatest strength, but also her greatest fear, the fear that someone might take her children away. Ultimately, the court granted Uma primary custody, but the scars from that fight remain. I want you to think about this. Uma didn't just face Busson in court. She faced every mother's deepest fear, the fear of losing her child, but she fought, not with a sword, but with love and determination, to protect her family. Dear friends, Uma Thurman's story is not just about these 5 men. It's about a woman who faced fear, betrayal, and Hollywood's traps, yet rose stronger than ever. At 55, Uma is no longer the sword-wielding bride, but a woman true to herself, ready to share her story to inspire us all. Think of her journey. From a girl who felt out of place due to her height and differences, to a star who made the world bow. And then, a woman who faced stalkers, abusers, and betrayers. Yet through it all, Uma found the strength to forgive, not for them, but for herself. She learned to love herself, to rise after every fall, and to live with dignity. I want to share something Uma said in an interview. Life isn't a movie with a happy ending, but you can choose how to tell your story. And that's what Uma has done. She chose to tell her story, not for revenge, but to heal, to remind us that even in the darkest moments, there's light at the end of the road. Friends, I know many of us, at this age, have faced our own trials. Perhaps a friend who turned away, a loved one who hurt us, or a dream that shattered. But like Uma, we can find the strength to move forward. We can choose to forgive, not because they deserve it, but because we deserve peace. Before we end, I want to ask you, who has left the deepest mark on your story? A friend, a family member, or even yourself? Share in the comments, because I'd love to hear your stories. You know, every story matters, and every story deserves to be told. Thank you for spending time here, listening to Uma Thurman's story with me. If this story touched your heart, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss more moving journeys. I'm your storyteller, and I promise to return with new stories, stories that will make us laugh, cry, and feel more deeply about life. Wishing you a peaceful, meaningful day, and always remember, like Uma, you are stronger than you think. See you in the next video.